Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm going to tell two very short little stories about placemaking. One is more about me and placemaking, and the other is about placemaking at Fall Creek Gardens. But in order for me to tell the Fall Creek Gardens story, you have to understand the deep irony of the fact that I am here. Do you have your 18-year-old self living in your head sometimes going, what are you thinking? Why are you making these crazy choices? Well, I grew up a pastor's kid in a small town, and there is no less anonymous position than to be a pastor's kid in a small town. So everybody knew my business all the time, and if I managed to get away with something, they would find a way to tell my mother, usually before I got home from school, that I had been doing whatever it was that was inappropriate. So when I left for college, I was never, ever going to come back to Indiana. I was going to leave the Midwest. I was going to live somewhere cool. Where that was going to be determined by extensive traveling first, all of these grand plans. So I graduated from college. I went to St. Olaf up in Minnesota. Woohoo! I am not Norwegian, but I am Lutheran, so I fit in just well enough. They ate really funny food at Christmas time up there, though, I have to tell you. And then I went to Savannah, Georgia for a while, thinking that the beach was going to make all the difference in the world, and it really did after Minnesota winters. But Minnesota is a fairly progressive place, so the culture shock was intense. So then I decided to come home and regroup, save a little money, and then move somewhere cool, And that was in 2001. So here I am, and now there's a house and chickens and a fiance and all kinds of things. But when I first moved back here, I worked for a canvassing organization, and I was complaining about my plans to move elsewhere. And the guy in charge said something that I will never forget, and I have wished that I had avoided this conversation several times in the years since. But he said to me, Maggie, if everybody moves, then this place never gets any better. And I said, but why do I have to sacrifice my youth to the cause? Can I just move someplace where it's a little easier, and then I'll move back when you guys have figured it all out, So the choice to make this my place, to stay here, to make this my home, was a very deliberate one when it finally occurred to me that that's what I was kind of doing without intending to. And the importance of that really came home to me when I was going back to school for my master's at the St. Mary of the Woods College down in Terre Haute. And they talk about this. It was a earth literacy degree, so an interdisciplinary look at sustainability. We took econ and ethics as much as we took ecology. And the concept of this perhaps fatal flaw in environmentalism where we want to save the panda or save the rainforest or save anything other than our own creek in the backyard really came home to me in a meaningful way. You can certainly care about all those places and donate your dollars and go on a trip and help and work, but if we all just took care of our own place, then we wouldn't need to take care of these places halfway around the world. So this was like the 2.0 version of that earlier conversation, where he said, if you leave, nothing, no one will ever make it better. And that took on a little deeper meaning for me as an older adult, learning it the second time and saying, in order to sustain my own efforts and my own passion to make things better, I need to be able to be revitalized by enjoying and loving the place that I'm in and really accepting this as home. So that was huge for me, and that's what got me then to the place where I ended up suddenly, with very little warning, in charge of this little nonprofit that's starting up in Mapleton Fall Creek. I was hired, I would just like to state for the record, for now until the end of time, I was hired to help out 5 to 10 hours a week as a part-time gardener. Okay, and I was very comfortable with that. That was great. I was outside doing my thing, And then the woman that hired me said, I've been putting all of these other projects on hold for the last year, and I'm leaving for a year-long sabbatical. Why don't you take on this project? And I said, okay. And then I have no idea what happened for about 3 months at all. It was a blur. I was kind of panicking. Fortunately, we were heading into winter, so the garden side of things was wrapped up for the year. But what we're doing at Fall Creek Gardens is basically placemaking, hopefully for a community. We have 7 vacant lots. You know, there's literally nothing there other than some weeds and a little strange weeping mulberry. I didn't even know those existed. There's a big badger hole or something that lives and keeps digging out this one spot. There's a lot of stuff that gets dumped along the alley. I can tell you all about that. But what has been phenomenal for me in the last year and a half is all of the comments, all of the questions, all of the people that stop by. We're, I think, fortunate in having sort of a captive audience right there because we're on Central heading south, and then the 30th Street intersection is right there. It's a stoplight, so everybody stops. But everybody also rolls down their window and wants to know what it is that we're doing out here. You know, they commute by every day, or this is their neighborhood, they're going somewhere, and they want to know who all these people are, what those garden beds are about, why we're all hanging out on the patio sharing a meal together on a Saturday. So it's an interesting journey because I don't live in the neighborhood, so this isn't my place officially. It's becoming my place the more time that I spend there and the more people that I meet. But it fundamentally belongs to the neighbors as far more than it does to me. And so in an effort to be making this place in a legitimate way, I do my best to get as much input as I can. Now, let me tell you, that also muddies the waters a great deal, you know? It's a lot easier. There is a certain part of me, I'm all easygoing, and then there's the control freak part, back there with the 18-year-old somewhere, that just wants to go and get things done. But part of this is asking for input and really considering it and having the conversation, and then pulling the trigger and getting going on whatever the project might be. So what we're doing right now is basically taking one little piece of the site plan after another and trying to find the funding and the will to get it done. We have a 23 species orchard, specimen. Some of them are duplicated species. Mostly native plants, so there will be things like persimmons and pecans and pawpaws as much as there will be apple trees and a peach tree thrown in. We do everything with sustainable methods, don't use chemicals. I want this to be something that is practical for everyone, not just people who want a Martha Stewart garden that can go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff every spring. I think the great myth of organics is that fundamentally, if you get into it, it is the least expensive way to grow your food in your backyard because you save your seeds, you don't buy them. You know, you get chicken bedding from your neighbor to compost and use as fertilizer. You know, you grow healthy plants, so you don't need to buy chemicals to spray on them. So we have our community garden, we have a rainwater catchment system and a patio. The patio for placemaking has been probably the best choice that we made because it's a place for us all to hang out and talk about what we're doing. So I encourage you, I would love to have you come and see our place that we're making. We'll be expanding the gardens this summer. Lots of fun, exciting things. We do a bunch of workshops. It's fundamentally a resource, a place to come and learn and then go make your own place at home. So thanks for having me, and that's all I have to say.